Tradwives aren't the only ones nostalgic for the past. Since 2020, more millennials and Gen-Zers are homesteading, living off the land, growing their own food, and becoming self-sufficient.
I think urban homesteads are going to become the norm in the next 50 years or so, and here's why.
Some people left the city to homestead on farms and live off the grid, generating their own electricity. Others stay in urban areas and turn their yards or balconies into gardens to grow their own produce and get chickens to lay eggs. People are basically just looking for more control over their lives, what's in their food, and they're seeking self-reliance in times of uncertainty. During the pandemic, a lot of supply chain issues, so people couldn't necessarily get the medicines that they wanted, or toilet paper, things like that. So I think a lot of people at that time started thinking a little bit like survivalists and also just kind of returning to a simpler lifestyle, even though it actually seems a little bit more complicated because you can't just go to the store. You would be making your own things, but you understand what I'm saying.
I was going to ask, so how do you feel about this homesteading movement?
I love homesteading. I want to do it myself. Unfortunately, I have a pool that's kind of in the way of any place that I would make a garden, but I suppose I could get some like little tiny pots and start growing blueberries and, become a little trad wife myself.
Yeah, I consider myself to be more progressive minded because I want to live in that Star Trek scenario that we've talked about before, more holistic society. But I actually had a realization recently that I think actually I'm conservative. I'm just more conservative than the conservatives that want to live in the 1950s. I want to live 4,000 years ago when we used to live off the land and had farms and livestock and we had like a tribal society and we all took care of everybody.
And we all died of cholera, etc. on the Oregon Trail.
Things weren't perfect, but I'm being idealistic too, just like conservatives.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, but there were civilizations in the past that were more holistic and cared about each other, and we weren't like having taxes and IRAs and like all the terrible things and unemployment. Everyone had a job because there were things that needed to be done.
Yeah, and one thing that I really like about the homesteading movement is that these people do see a sense of community because they know that they can't really survive on their own. So they do have a little bit more of a small community-minded way of thinking, which for people in a big city like Los Angeles, like us, that seems absurd because you walk down the street and you just don't make eye contact with people because if you do, you're weird. So I really like this. I like this kind of like wholesome return to the land.
I mean, in the right community with the right people, it can work. My dad has started a farm of his own since he's retired, and I think that's really great. And I think that more people should start growing their own food because reading that book on climate change, food's just going to get more and more expensive, and that's probably a really good idea.